Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's a little bit after 1, so we'll go ahead and get started, recognizing folks are still joining us. It's good to be here with you all. Continue to put where you're from and how you're doing today in the chat box. I'm Dreama Gentry with Partners for Education, and I'm really excited to be here again with folks who are passionate about rural places and libraries, and it's just great to be back here. Today, we're going to be talking about how libraries have innovated and pivoted and continue to do their important work, especially over this last year with the pandemic. So I'm excited to be joined by Lesley Graham with Save the Children. Lesley, are you here?
I'm here. Thank you, Dreama. Thanks for those opening remarks. And yes, as you mentioned, Lesley Graham, Senior Director of Community Impact within Save the Children's U.S. programs. I am super excited for today's conversation. I love seeing all the chatter already in the chat box and the connections that I'm seeing. And Burr, it's absolutely cold in Alaska. I'm excited too to be the moderator for today's conversation in action. I do think that you are all in for a treat, and we definitely hope that the conversation today does just that it sparks interest, that it sparks action, and that you all consider replicating some of these innovative practices and strategies that our presenters will be sharing. As Dreama mentioned, we know that this past year and continues to be into this year, it's been difficult. The pandemic has really pushed us all to reimagine our work, to pivot, to grow, to partner with others in really new and unique ways, and also to push ourselves to think creatively about how to continue to best support children and families across our rural places. So today you're going to hear about a variety of innovations resulting from both innovative and collaborative thinking, outside of the box thinking, implemented across the country from rural communities. You're going to hear about digital access to literacy resources, libraries' role in food distribution, creative virtual learning support, even a comprehensive community-based summer reading program. So I am excited to go ahead and introduce our esteemed presenters representing libraries across 4 states here in the U.S. So we first will have Sheila Lindsey from Perry County, Kentucky, Ashley Jackson from Holly Hill, South Carolina, Deanie Schmitzer, Assistant Regional Library Director out of Cookeville, Tennessee, as well as Michael Hale from the White County Public Library in Sparta, Tennessee, and Dana Clolinger from the Tallahatchie Library System in Mississippi. So welcome, presenters, and thank you for your time today. We're so excited to hear all that you have to share. And before we dive in, I will also just encourage all of you that are participating, as you're listening, to please engage in the discussion. We want this to be a conversation. We know that's tricky over Zoom. And we want to make sure we direct everybody to the chat box. So we really do welcome your comments, your feedback, your thoughts, questions that are sparked as you're listening. You're even welcome to share your reflections or sharing of your own innovative practices and strategies. So we really do want to make sure that we're hearing from all of you too. We will have dedicated time at the end of the conversation today for question and answer. We'll be pulling questions for presenters to just expand on their sharing and the practices that they've highlighted. And I will just go ahead and direct you to the Q&A box that's located in the toolbar to input specific questions for presenters. All right, without further ado, we'll ask our first speaker, Sheila Lindsey, to share with us about how she adapted her work and continued to meet the ever-evolving needs of children and families in her community in Kentucky. Sheila.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for having me. So like many of you, we were marching along in our little library world, and we were thinking about spring programming, and we were gearing up for summer reading program when the library world as we knew it just kind of came to a screeching halt. Like most of you, we were struggling to even find ways to communicate with each other. So the first issue we felt like we faced was how are we going to keep serving the community and what do they really need? We were really stumped and puzzled. We knew in the beginning of the pandemic that they needed access to reading materials, and no one was working in the building. No one was able to come and physically get materials. So that had to become a digital platform. We already have one platform for ebooks that goes by two names you might be familiar with. One is Overdrive and the other is Libby. Libby's a little easier to use. Well, that database had movies and books and audiobooks and graphic novels, magazines, well over 100,000 items for them to choose from. But unfortunately, it didn't have a lot of books that were geared towards children on this platform. And with schools being shut down and parents suddenly becoming homeschool parents, that became important. So we started looking for ways to fund it. The ebooks don't come cheap. So we started looking for grants. And we applied for one called the Kentucky Humanities Grant, and it's awarded through the CARES Act grant, which is part of the grants awarded during a pandemic. And we were able to get one grant. I think it was for like $10,000, and all that money went into adding just those K through 8 books to that ebook collection that we so desperately needed. Then we started hearing from the schools. Educators, resource centers were reaching out, mostly grade school, middle school, asking for help in getting reading materials into the hands of the students. We knew we had what they needed, but how were we going to get it to them? And they had to have library cards to access our databases. So we ordered a large amount of extra library cards, and we started emailing applications out to every school in our county. We were making lots of cards when I realized that this still wasn't going to give everybody access, because our system, maybe like your system, is set up that if they owe fines or fees to the library, you couldn't get into certain databases. One of those was Overdrive and Libby. So it was this oh no moment where you thought you had it solved, but you really didn't. So when we realized that, we went to our board of trustees, and they voted to eliminate all fines and fees for as far back as the library had been in existence. And it was an amazing gift that they offered to our community, because now everybody had access now. Nobody had limitations and anybody could get in. So after that, we started adding a few databases to kind of bridge the gap for parents and teachers. One was called Tumble Books, and it's offered for free actually during the pandemic. And we took advantage of that, immediately put it up on our website. This targeted like K through 12, and it's kind of similar to Overdrive, but it had a few advantages. And the big advantage to this is it offered simultaneous usage. So if a teacher wanted their class to read Charlotte's Web, the whole class, and an unlimited number of students could have access to that book at the same time, whereas with Overdrive, it was one at a time. So this really helped the teachers to be able to distribute this one book. But, you know, every state is unique, and Kentucky has KDLA, which is the Kentucky Departments of Library and Archives, and they assisted us in finding free databases, and they actually have one of their own databases that we pay for every year that they offer free for a year. And they also were instrumental in helping us find grants. So I recommend that you look to whatever your state Department of Libraries for assistance, because there's a lot of things out there right now that you can get help with. So once we felt like we kind of took care of that initial need for reading material, we turned to programming. We had always talked about going to social media and having a presence there, but most of our staff were really camera shy. They were afraid to get into it. So it took a little while. We started really slow in creating programs online. But then we started offering cooking classes, story time, bedtime story time, where we put on our pajamas and filmed ourselves reading stories. We did a scary story time around October. We had coding classes to teach them how to code with everyday things they had at home. We did a trivia night, and we crafted. So pretty much things that we done in-house, we started doing on social media. And even after the pandemic, we're not going to stop this, and I'll tell you why. The difference is that once we were doing, like for instance, story time as an in-person program, we would get 10 to 20 children in here on a Saturday. We'd read them a story, and that was great. You know, we reached 10 to 20 kids. That same storyline or story time online, we were reaching 200 to 600 kids with the same effort. Another example was Cooking Club. We would have an in-house program that would cost maybe $200 to $300, maybe teaching kids how to make homemade pizzas. We would maybe reach 20 to 30 children. One of our online cooking programs went viral. We reached thousands of children at a cost of about $20. So if you don't have a social media presence, I highly encourage it. I think it will really help you in the long run. And it actually saves the library a lot of money, less money, with way more exposure and getting things out there to your community. So just a few other things that we done really quickly. Through the year, we knew that we could not have Santa. Santa's a big deal here. We get hundreds, probably close to 1,000 kids every year comes through the library to see Santa. So we knew we couldn't do that in person this year. So we made up little goodie bags as if they come from Santa. They had coloring books and slime and seek and find pages, and they each had a book in them, to name a few. And we gave over 1,000 of those away in 3 weeks. So people were really anxious to get out and just come to the library and get something. And we were lucky enough to have a drive-through here, so it was all contactless. That was a help for us. And then our bookmobile became essential because people who we usually didn't even offer bookmobile service to, we started doing contact delivery. So people took advantage of that. We also added a lot of teaching guides to the collection because, like I said a few minutes ago, you suddenly had parents who were teachers. They were homeschool teachers now, and they needed resources to help them through it. We also offered a database called Scholastic Teachables. It was a little pricey, I think $3,000 for the year. I recommend Scholastic Teachables. It's everything from lesson plans to printout sheets for the kids. It's for everybody. All ages, all the way through high school can use this database, and it kind of is a homework helper all built into one. We also offered 20 free prints per day to each student. If they were a student and they needed prints, we offered 20 a day for free. And they could come through the book drop to pick those up. So that's just a few things I wanted to share with you that we've done. We have definitely fumbled a lot during the pandemic, but we've learned a lot. Thanks for letting me share and some of our challenges that we've worked through. I know we still have challenges to go, and I look forward to learning from everybody else. And I hope I've shared a little something that may be useful to you all today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sheila. Lots of great ideas and resources to share. So thank you for that. I also truly appreciate that you highlighted the learning that happened for you and for your staff, recognizing that you had to course correct a bit to make sure that you were meeting the needs of all families, and that you kind of took that amazing next step to erase all those back fines to ensure that all families had access. So we know that this work is not smooth sailing. It can be tough work, especially when we're trying to completely adapt the ways that we're accustomed to working. So thank you for sharing the practices, but also that reflection.
Thank you.
All right. I also will just note we are seeing questions coming through the chat box, so we will not ignore those. We will get to all of those as best we can during our Q&A time. So Sheila, get ready. All right. So now we will hear from Ashley Jackson in Holly Hill, South Carolina. And we're going to hear about her library's role in combating food insecurity and supporting this very basic fundamental need of ensuring children's access to food, as well as other supports and services in her one-stop pop-up shop. So Ashley.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. It has definitely been a great day today. So let's just jump right in. Our one-stop pop-up shop event, we partnered with Save the Children. And we put together over 150 bags. We had care bags, food, books. At this event, we did voter registration, census, and COVID testing all in one. So we had it throughout our parking lot. It was a drive-through service. So we maintained social distancing. And we've seen a lot of people, even though it rained all day on us. So we got through the weather, and we've always tried to meet our community where they are. We are in a very small town. Our library is a safe haven here. Our county is 1,000 square miles, and we serve an estimated 2,500 people. So we're serving our surrounding counties also. Internet has been a huge problem. We have the Khajiit system here. So with our parents online, you know, teaching their children online, it has just been a very big challenge for us here. We have tried to help our students in the best way we can. You know, where we are here, low income, almost no education for the parents. It really does make it difficult to prepare for our day-to-day. The crime that has been brought to our library has been life-changing for our staff and our community. We have overcame so many obstacles here in the last 5 years. So the way that we've tried to reach out was the care packages. You know, it came with hand sanitizer, mask. We just started thinking outside of the box, which I think is what we're born to do, right? I mean, that's why we're here. You think outside of the box. You try to meet your community where they are. And with our virtual programming, we definitely have had a huge outcome with that. We're still doing like crafts on the go where they can still come by our library. We're doing curbside services here. So we still have our crafts on the go. We just kind of put together crafts and have it in a baggie, and they come pick it up here. We do virtual teen art shows online, and we have storytelling online. We have scavenger hunts. I mean, we have really tried to just use every advantage of online and in person that we can find. So, you know, we're still trying to figure things out here. It is definitely a different way of librarying. But if you know your community, then you know the needs that need to be met. And so, you know, we are definitely trying to be the change that we are wanting to see. You know, it's a great day here. So we're always trying to think outside of the box. So, you know, we're doing what we are always doing. It's just in a different way for Holly Hill.
Great, thank you, Ashley. And can you tell us a little bit more about the structure of the one-stop shop? You mentioned you did some resource distributions, that you provided little goodie bags with hand sanitizer, masks. How did that all kind of come together? And if you could just tell us more about some of the other services that I believe that you all provided, I think that could be helpful too.
Okay, so we reached out to different companies that's here, different businesses that's here in Holly Hill, and they donated a good bit of things. So it really didn't affect we didn't have to use any of our budget in order to do this. We had books that we give out, and so our voter registration, that was here, you know, it was back in September. So it was right around the time that, you know, everyone was trying to get the voter registrations in. And then our COVID testing, you know, that's done here once a week, right outside in our parking lot. It's just a drive-through COVID testing setup. So we had that. And then we also had our census people here, so that you can, you know, do your census here. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, thanks. I just wanted to make sure that folks understood kind of all the different things that you all were offering, because it was kind of this really cool opportunity, as I heard about it, of COVID testing, the voter registration, the census, the food distribution, the book and learning resources, the basic needs items. It was kind of everything that you could possibly need all in one centralized location versus folks having to run around across town to all these different places. So I thought that was just such a creative way combine all of those services for your families.
Thank you. We definitely worked really hard on it that day and weeks before. You know, Chelsea from Save the Children, we came together and we just worked together. You know, we collaborated what we thought our community needed, and we just jumped into action. There was a lot of sweat, there was a lot of running, there was a lot of work. You know, and I think that anytime you put together a program like that, you are going to run into all kinds of issues, you know, whether it being one of them, with it being outside, We had tents popped up. You know, we were really surprised at the line of people before it was time to start waiting in line. And it showed that what we were doing, our community actually needed that, you know, and they were willing to wait, and they were willing to sit out in the rain in their vehicles. And you know, it was amazing how our community came together. And, you know, we definitely made a difference that day. You know, the library, with a community like ours, we feel that they deserve the same services as a big town, you know, a larger city. And so we try to do everything that we can to show them that we are here for them, you know, that we're going to fight for them. We're going to get them what they need in order to succeed. And when I speak about some of the parents not being educated, when I tell you that it's been such a divide there, you know, they don't know how to help their children. They don't know, you know, simple steps that we know, and so, or that most parents do know. It's definitely been a challenge to keep up with that, or to try to break down those walls. But I think that when we do programs like that, it shows them that we're going to be here no matter what, rain or shine. You know, we're not going to cancel any events because of, you know, the weather. We're going to come through. So I think that showed our community that we're going to meet them where they are every time.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Ashley, so much for sharing. Very creative and an inspiring way to really bring the community together, reach families where they are, and provide all these different supports all at one point in time. So thank you for your passion for overcoming the obstacles that you faced. And I really love what you say, rain or shine, you're committed, you're dedicated to supporting the needs of families and children. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so next we're going to hear from Jeannie and Michael from Tennessee. They're going to tag team sharing some of the innovations that they have been implementing across the state, as well as diving into more depth on a specific practice that Michael will highlight around virtual learning supports within the White County Public Library. So Jeannie and Michael, please take it away.
Thank you so much. I just really want to say to Sheila and Ashley, I'm impressed. This is just so awesome what you guys are doing. But I work for a regional library. We're part of the State Library and Archives here in Tennessee. So we are not actually open to the public, but we provide support services, advice, consultation to libraries within a particular region. And mine covers 14 counties. But a lot of word travels through us, and we hear a lot about great programs going on. So I just wanted to share a couple with you. One of the most impressive was a tiny one-person library in Petros, Tennessee. It's over in Morgan County, up near the Kentucky border, and very rural, mountainous area. The people there are just hardly any jobs. It is a high poverty area, and there was no food pantry or food outreach. So this little tiny one-person library in Petros, Tennessee collaborated and got a food pantry going and still provided curbside service. So if granted, you did have to be able to come to the library, but you could come and pick up books, and you could also get food. That was just an extremely helpful thing for that community. We also have another little library up on the Kentucky border, Clay County. And one of the first things, of course, this happened while school was in session, and all of a sudden parents cannot bring their kids to use computers. But the library had several iPads and laptop computers. So parents could pull up in the parking lot, call the library, and say, I'd like to check out an iPad or a computer, and somebody would run it out to their car, let them check it out, and they could use it there and let the library know when they were done with it and bring it back in. They got a lot more out that way. And plus with the CARES grant, more and more hotspots have been ordered for people to have access that way. And then we had another little bit larger library in DeKalb County down in Smithville, Tennessee, and they were just having so many people needing copies and faxes. So what they did is they created an entire email just for people who wanted to have copies and faxes done. So these are people, of course, that had internet access. They could just email the library what they needed copied or faxed. The library would do that, and copies they would leave out in a little deposit box outside the door, and people would leave their money in there. And it worked so well. I know that several of these things, they're just going to continue. That's one of them. They said it's the best thing they've ever done was set up a separate email for these kinds of transactions. But one of the other libraries in our area is White County Library, and the stuff that they have been doing virtually is just really creative for both adults and children. And I have seen science experiments and learned how to make a wreath for the holidays and colored along with Miss Dana after story time. It's just been so nice. But Michael Hale has really self-taught how to do this virtual programming with his phone and free software. So Michael, I'm going to turn this over to you. You've got some great ideas to share.
Well, thank you, Jeannie, and thank you to Lesley and Dreama for having me today. I'm excited to be here. Some of you have already talked a little bit about the digital programs you've been doing. I'm so glad to see that. It's definitely a great opportunity that I hope you all will pounce on and bring into your repertoire of what you can do for your community. Why did we do this? Of course, the pandemic was a big part of it. We actually started a little bit early because we had a bad flu season last year. So the schools had shut down and we had a little bit of a jump start on the digital story times. So that's how we got started, just me and my phone, the children's librarian recording those and put them on Facebook. Not a whole lot more to it than that. From then, of course, the pandemic hit and we were just on the cusp of summer reading. So we had the question of how do we bring summer reading to our community during a pandemic? And what we decided was we were going to offer videos for each of our target populations. We have an adult librarian, we have a teen librarian, and we have a children's librarian. So we committed to doing weekly programs digitally for each of those demographics. What we have learned is this creates a unique opportunity in your community. So much of social media is impersonal. You know, it's supposed to be personal. It's supposed to be about us, but I find that most people follow the same 10 or 12 websites, and you're able to show people for your community of them. The science show down there, that's me on the left. We recorded that one. That was a lot of fun. Down on the bottom, I don't know if any sports fans are in here, but that's David Culley. David Culley is a local from Sparta, Tennessee. He still lives here. As of when we recorded that last summer, he was the assistant head coach for the Baltimore Ravens. This week, he was hired on as the head coach for the Houston Texans. So we're very proud of David. He came in and did an interview with us, and that was part of an interview series called Hey, I Know You. So every week we would take somebody in the community that we thought was a person of interest, and we would sit down and we would just get to know them. And we would record it and we'd splice it together and we'd throw it out on Facebook, and we would put it on our Facebook page. But we'd also, I don't know if you all have these, but in our community, we have little groups like, hey, I know somebody from Sparta, Tennessee, or Hip Sparta or something. So I would share those from the library Facebook page to those groups, and they would take off like rockets. So we shared that interview with David probably has close to 1,000 views this week. I just reshared it since he got hired on with Texas, but that's just this week. And of course, you know, we live and die by numbers. So the state of Tennessee is they have a formula that your viewers have to watch for a minute for it to count as a number. So you might have 2,000 people that click on it. If they don't watch it for a full minute, it doesn't count as a program number. So that's something that you all should check with your local municipalities and check with that. As far as how I do that, of course, you can do a Facebook Live. We don't really prefer to do that because the numbers don't work out very well that way, because you can only count who is viewing it live. So I like to record. I use an HP. It costs about $800. I use my iPhone for recording. I use free software called DaVinci Resolve. You can download that. Just Google it. It's free of charge. I purchased a ring light and a tripod with a smartphone attachment off Amazon. That was maybe $200 total. And I just used online tutorials on YouTube and taught myself. So big takeaway, recorded programs are a huge addition to your established programs. It's not expensive. You just need your smartphone, some free software, and a decent computer. You've got free tutorials, and you're not going to be great at first, but you just keep doing it and you will get there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael, for sharing your secrets and those resources. I think we're seeing some synergies here with innovations around digital access and creative virtual programming, even around feeding programs. So I think all of this really does highlight unfortunately, the vast digital divide that's facing our rural communities and putting our children at risk of falling even further behind. So thank you for sharing some of those innovations, how you're addressing some of those challenges, including running iPads out the cars to families to use in the parking lot. And I love those creative ways for engaging youth in virtual learning. Those local interviews with a person of interest, that's so creative. I love that, really highlighting local community leaders, and I could see how others really get engaged in viewing those. So thank you for that. All right, now, last but not least, we're going to turn it over to Dana, coming to us from Mississippi, to share about her library's creative approach to summer reading. And this is a time we know many children lose critical learning time over the summer. And this summer, more than ever, really did prove to be a difficult time for keeping children engaged and learning and reading. So Dana, we're excited to hear from you. We know that summer planning starts now. Yes, it's only February, but we're excited to hear from you. So Dana, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I was going to say, Lesley, you know, now as cold as it is and with the snow and everything that's going on, you know, we really probably aren't thinking a lot about spring, and especially right now, not thinking about summer. However, it will be here before we know it. And so last year, as Sheila mentioned, you know, we started off 2020 with a bang. We were ready for that summer reading program. We were thinking of who's going to come in and be our guest readers. And, you know, we were planning themes and ordering supplies. We were going to be proactive. And then COVID hit. And suddenly our guest readers didn't really want to come in because they were afraid. Parents did not want to bring their children in for activities or events. And even our supplies were on back order. So what were we going to do? So our mindset was at first, let's just cancel. Let's just not do a summer reading program this summer. And then our amazing library director said, we can't do that. Because just like you said, Lesley, right now, these children and these parents, they need us more than ever. They need us this summer just as much as, to be honest, we needed that summer reading program. And so what we had to do was, not only did we have to think outside the box, but we had to plan outside the box. Our communities, as everyone else mentioned, most of our kids don't have computers and they don't have hotspots. And so we had to take our program virtual, but we had to be creative. So we started really reaching out to make this a community event for our local community, not just for us, but we wanted to involve as many people and as many businesses as we could. So we reached out to local businesses and community leaders, and we were able to secure about 15 guest readers. Now, we wanted to make sure that we had a couple extras, and we wanted to have it at a minimum 3 stories per week that we were going to record and upload. We also found a young man who was very tech savvy, who needed community service hours for his school. And so he became our videographer, and he uploaded and helped us get everything up on our Facebook page, and so that the children could access it with a simple phone, their phone or the parent's phone. So once we knew that that was taken care of, we then really had to determine how are we going to keep these students engaged. So we put together a very simple grab and go bag, like I'm sure probably everyone else did, you know, very simple Ziploc bag. But we wanted to keep these students busy and these children busy for the entire week. And so we put lots of games and puzzles and crafts and all kinds of things in there. However, our schools closed after spring break. The students just never went back. And so a lot of the resources that they needed for these crafts, they didn't have. They were either at school, or to be honest, as Ashley mentioned, the parents really couldn't afford to buy a lot of excess materials and supplies. So due to grant funding, we actually made sure that every single child, when they received their first grab and go bag, it included a brand new box of crayons, glue sticks, and scissors. So they had everything they needed for the full program. We also wanted to make sure that they had snacks. Now, I remember as a child, my favorite part of the summer reading program was those little cookies and juice that you would get. Now that I'm an adult, I know my mom bought them at the same grocery store, and it was the same cookies, but they were just better because they were with the summer reading program. So we partnered with our local food pantry, and they donated enough cereal bars so that every single child could have cereal bars in every single bag every week of our summer program. We also partnered with our local grocery store, and they gave us a huge discount on juice. So every child received their cereal bars and their juice in every bag every week. And distributing these bags was also a community event. We had grandparents picking up, parents picking up, we were dropping them off, community members were dropping them off. Any way that we could get these out into our community, we did every single week. Now, as we continued to transition through, we realized we had to market differently. You know, as Michael mentioned, it was very different. Previously, we would pass out flyers, you know, email one to the local principal at the elementary, and it would just flood the community. We couldn't do that. School wasn't in session. So we had to take a really very different approach. And we did use Facebook. And we also tried to link with our local elementary Facebook pages, PTO Facebook pages, anybody that we could get to share our summer reading program, we did. We also realized in marketing that our local newspaper, they didn't have sports. They didn't have spring sports events or pictures or any of those things. And so they needed information to print in the paper. So they allowed us, starting 6 weeks before our summer reading program started, to submit articles every week, articles to hype and to really build up excitement about our program. And that's what we did. So as we continued to build the program, we also worked with them and we selected Readers of the Week. The Readers of the Week were in the paper, and they also had a little blurb about them. You know, every mom loves that. Goes on the refrigerator. Grandmother buys extra copies of the paper. So everybody loved these. But it was our partnership with Save the Children that really took this to the next level, because every child that was a Reader of the Week received a yard sign. And so the yard signs started popping up all over town. And people were wondering, where are these yard signs coming from? Hence, enroll your child in that summer reading program. They also received a goodie bag from Save the Children. And in that goodie bag, there were popsicles that they could freeze and eat because, again, cool kids read. Now, as our program was coming to an end, we also had to say a lot of thank yous because, again, this had been a community event that businesses, lots of people were involved in, and they were excited about in the middle of this pandemic. So we had two main groups we had to thank. We had to thank our readers, and we had to thank our families that had participated and had allowed their children to be a part of our program. The first was our guest readers. And that was actually kind of easy. What we did with them is we had a local restaurant that allowed us to give each of them a gift certificate for a free meal, a free lunch on the library, as well as we gave each of them a nice framed certificate to display in their office or their business, which again, that was a marketing ploy for us because we wanted these signs and these certificates to be all over town in these offices, and they are. The other thing is we had to thank our families. And so one of the things that we did is we invited them to send in photos of their children, eating their snack, reading a book, making their craft. After their craft was finished, whatever they wanted to do. This gave us lots of material to continue to post on our Facebook page, but it also gave us the opportunity for a photo contest. And that's what we had. And of course, you guessed it, it was in the paper. And we selected our 3 top photos. Each family received a gift certificate from our local little Dairy Queen so that the family could go for banana splits to celebrate that their child had been selected and their photo had won. So that's how we ended our program. I can tell you that we went into our program really a little bit apprehensive, you know, as we talked about views and we talked about people joining. Our enrollment for our summer reading program the previous year was sporadic. Kids would come in and out, families would come in and out. However, this year we doubled our enrollment of students that were involved, and we also had thousands of views online, more than we ever thought we would have. And so in closing, I'd say, you know, we were our own worst enemy. We just had to get past ourselves and really get creative, and it worked, and the community loved it.
That's amazing, Dana. Thank you so much for sharing super creative work. And I'll just say, I'm so glad you didn't cancel. We appreciate that perseverance, dedication, and really just look at all you were able to accomplish. That's so amazing. And definitely highlighted how you were able to engage other community stakeholders and all the partnerships that were evident. So great job. Thank you for highlighting that work. And yes, cool kids read. Yeah, we're excited about that. All right. So thank you to all of our presenters today for sharing all of the adaptations you made to your work, your learnings that you shared, the challenges that you overcome. And we really do appreciate just all of the innovation that you exhibited as you really aim to support advancing children's educational outcomes. So thank you. We will now move into the Q&A portion of the conversation. We have about 10 minutes for folks to ask questions of our presenters. Or if you want to just kind of provide some comments or areas where we want to dig in deeper, we can do that as well. I have seen several questions coming through, so let me just kind of get acclimated here to where we want to start. And you're welcome to keep them rolling in. All right, so we're going to start. Sheila, a question for you. And really this might, you know, others you're welcome to chime in too, but the question is really around raising visibility and increasing participation. So being in a rural area, how were you able to attract so many children for your virtual story times? One of the participants shares that they tried to keep one going every week, but many families lacked internet access. And so they tried to market the story time, but only would have about 3 viewers that were able to attend. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you were able to market the story time and get folks excited and interested in participating.
Yeah, that can definitely be a challenge for sure. So I guess one of the quickest and most less expensive ways that you can do it is if you're doing a Facebook post, for example, it's very inexpensive to do a boost on those. So we do a boost on those, and that definitely reaches more people. We've also did a pretty strong marketing strategy. We've moved into other social media like Twitter. We also are doing, we're duplicating and moving to YouTube. We've started a YouTube as well. We get a lot of views on YouTube. That's what happened with our one program. It wasn't doing so good here. And then my programmers really felt, they took it very personal. Nobody's watching it. Nobody's liking it. So they kind of made it their mission to reach more people. So going to YouTube was a huge increase as well, because that thing just keeps rolling over and over and over. And then it's all, like you said, it's also challenging when you have limited access to internet. All of our communities, I think, suffer from that. One thing I'll point out too that we done that may help others, we added a wireless access point to close to the outside of the building, and we left our Wi-Fi turned on 24/7 so people could come up, families, and just use our Wi-Fi. But it is challenging. And one of my programmers even said, I think we're oversaturating the market. We're on there too much, but I actually think the opposite happened. The more we were present on social media, the bigger numbers that we got. And we also serve probably 6 to 7 counties of people utilize us as kind of a hub as well. So all that together, but in the beginning, the numbers were very low. It was just a trial and error and a learning process for us. So I hope that answers that question.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have other thoughts to add there to what Sheila shared? Okay. All right. Michael, I will ask, I noticed there was quite a bit of interest in the resources and apps that you use to do the online programming. I know that you jotted these down in the chat box. If there's a way you could just kind of rattle those off for us, that would be helpful for folks to kind of hear.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So basically my setup is just my iPhone. I use an iPhone 11, but you know, any iPhone will do. I had to upgrade my computer because I know some of you use these library computers. They're not the fastest. So I did have to use some of that CARES money to purchase a laptop. I bought an HP for like $800 and it's just the best thing ever. So that you don't have to spend a ton of money. I do use a lot of storage on my phone. You're gonna hit that wall pretty quickly. I use iCloud. You can purchase like double the storage for like $1 a month. At this point, I'm up to like $5 a month. So definitely know that. DaVinci Resolve is the video editing software I use. It's completely free. Just Google DaVinci Resolve and just install it on your computer. It's, you know, there's a bit of a learning curve. Just stick with it and you'll get it. And of course, there's a ton of YouTube tutorials. Just type in DaVinci Resolve beginner tutorial and you'll be on your way. I do use a ring light. You'll see those a lot in like beauty salons and stuff like that. It's the same idea as like the mirrors with the lights all around it. So that brings a lot of light into your face. That's really good unless you wear glasses. A lot of my librarians wear glasses and I can't use it then, but for everybody else, it's great. You're definitely going to want a tripod and a smartphone attachment. Just buy that when you buy everything else. And I think that's pretty much it. You know, just utilize those local groups that everybody else is on and you should be on your way.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
All right. Dana, a question for you. You mentioned finding a local youth who was able to support kind of the startup of your programming. Just kind of, if you could elaborate on that planning process a bit more. How did you identify who could contribute what and what skills folks had to bring to the table? How did that all come about?
It was really just honestly a lot of brainstorming and volunteering. You know, we would meet, and it very quickly became, you know, who do we know that would be willing to help? And then, you know, people just started asking, and we were lucky because I don't think we ever really received a no. The same thing with the young man. He's the son of one of our neighbors, and I knew he was, you know, very tech savvy, and I knew that he needed those community service hours, and he loved it. He loved working with our librarian, and he loved being a part of the program.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm also seeing a lot of chatter in the chat box about Tumble Books. Sheila, do you want to just respond to that piece? It looks like someone has said, yes, it is free, but if you want to elaborate there, that might be helpful.
And I put a phone number in the chat box as well. So I just spoke about Tumble Books, but they also offer Tumble Books Math and Tumble Books iCloud. And right now they're all free. I'm planning on, if it's not too expensive, picking that up afterwards. And you can call the number, and what they do is they'll set you up a free trial. I think it's for 90 days just to see if you're going to like it. And then after that, they will kind of set you up on a longer plan. But it's definitely worth investing and putting that into your website or wherever you've got right now, because it's, like I said, the simultaneous access is worth its weight in gold right now. So try that number. And I think that number is a direct link to a person who can hook you up.
Thank you. And Sheila, while you're speaking, one quick follow-up question. I believe you mentioned some teaching guides that you were providing to parents through the library. If you could share a little bit more about those teaching guides. Yeah,
so you can actually get them everywhere from Amazon to we do Ingram. I know everybody has their own vendors. Ingram is our primary vendor. there is so many. I would leave a ton out, but there's even like homeschooling guides for parents for dummies. I mean, it's, you name it, it's out there. If you are looking for specific subjects, if you're looking for homework helpers, if you want to gear it towards the teachers, if you wanted to gear it towards the parent, there is just a multitude. And I'd be glad to, if anybody wants to reach out, I'd be glad to share what we have here. But I think just the basic search for homeschooling guides is where we started. And like I said, I think too, the publishers now, they know that there's a need for that. So it's starting to flood the market. You're seeing it more and more. But we actually check those out a lot. We keep a few of those in reference, but very few, especially because they can't access them right now. So definitely try those out, because you'll see parents begging. They'll come in and say, my kids failing, they can't do their multiplications, or they can't do this. How do I teach them how to do it? And, you know, we're not teachers per se, you know, trained teachers, but those books are resources where we can hand these out and say, look, this may help you. And it's so good. It's a good feeling to know that, you know, you at least link them to something that's going to help them and make it a little easier for them.
Great. Thank you, Sheila. All right, Ashley, a question for you. If you don't mind to tell us a little bit more about how the virtual art programming or art show was implemented, how that came about, how you facilitated that programming, that would be helpful.
Sure. Our youth services librarian she actually came up with the idea, and I really believe that if you allow your team to, you know, before they ask the question, it's yes, you know, if it's to do with our community and we have the resources, why not run with that? So when she brought that to me, I thought it was a great idea. She used Canva to create a flyer, and we passed it out with our crafts on the go. We put it on our social media accounts, and the kids just flocked to it. I mean, they loved it. And what we did is the winners, we made bookmarks out of. So that was kind of a rewarding, you know, result. You know, that's what they ended up with. So they got to keep their bookmark, and the rest of the children and adults and our other teams, we passed them out with their books when they would come pick it up, or their craft, you know. So we got to send all those bookmarks out to our community. But yeah, they really enjoyed it. You know, the parents loved seeing it. You know, just interact with us on social media. So yeah, that's how we.
Great, thank you. So one last question, and anybody is welcome to take this one on and just answer it pretty briefly, and then we'll kind of keep on moving. But one of our participants shares that during the beginning of the pandemic, they had a really good turnout with their online presence, but as the time progresses, their patrons have not been as active. Any simple tricks, tips, suggestions to try to get them back and get them engaged?
Just keep going. Don't get discouraged.
Great. And I think everybody could probably rely on those kind of going back to the drawing board, doing those brainstorming meetings, partnering with others, reaching out to families and patrons to see, how their needs changing or shifting. So this has been great. Thank you for a fabulous discussion. Lots of flurry still in the chat box. Thank you, presenters, for sharing your insights, your practices, and giving us good ideas that we can replicate across our own communities. So also a thank you to the participants for your engagement, for your questions, for your enthusiasm throughout. And I'll now pass it over to Dreama, who will close us out and give us a look at what's coming ahead.
Thank you, Lesley, and thank you everyone for sharing your best practices. We know that when we think of communities, and especially rural places, that you librarians are the innovative, resourceful folks. And the way that you've pivoted and the way that you've been able to connect and continue to connect during this pandemic, we really do appreciate you and the work. And from the chat box, we know there's many more out there like you, which is so heartwarming given what a tough time this is for families and young people. I just want to share what's coming up. And so Sam, if you'll put up the slide, And Lesley, I know that you've been working on this next webinar, March 3rd. The topic is resources and funding opportunities. Anything you want to share specifically about that March 3rd one, or is that still in the works?
Definitely still in the works, but this is a good plug for those of you that are interested and might have some ideas of you need ideas for resources, or you have an idea of what we could maybe spotlight. Please send those things our way. You're welcome to do so over chat or reach out directly, but it's very much in the works and we're eager to see how it all shapes up.
And what we'll be doing is we will be sending these slides to everybody. We'll be sending, we'll be compiling all the resources and links you've put in the chat, and we'll keep a running resource list. Because I do think that can be a really valuable piece, because it's always nice to know about a resource that somebody else actually used and not have to hear about it from like the salesperson, right? So it really is powerful. The next event I want to bring your attention to is our Rural College Access and Success Summit. This used to be a live event, but it's actually going virtual this year, and it's a Monday through Friday. We'll have a networking half hour from 12:30 to 1, and then the actual sessions will be 1 to 3:30. This event will be our third event, and it's for folks who are working to ensure kids are prepared for college and career, and that they have the support necessary to get that certification, to get that 2- and 4-year degree. And this year, we're actually including a library track in the summit. And Sam, if you'll go to that next slide, I'm really excited that our keynote presenters on the first day is Neela Vaswani and Silas House. And Silas is a good friend. He's from here in Kentucky. And he and Neela did a book called Same Sun Here a few years ago that many schools and communities and libraries are using as a book to really look at that rural-urban divide and to really think about how young people can come together across virtually. In the book, I think they are pen pals, but virtually to connect. And so we are featuring 2 authors the first day. And this summit does have a fee attached to it. But what we're actually doing is we'll be sending out a form where you can actually join this network officially. And this network, there will be no cost for the network or any of the offerings. And if you join the network, then you'll also have access to this summit at no cost too. So Sam, just keep looking. You'll get some emails about how to go online and join the network officially. And then the last piece of this is the Library Fellowship. And the fellowship is funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And then Partners for Education and Save the Children are coming together to provide this fellowship to 22 folks from rural libraries around the country that really want to develop a comprehensive community strategy around 3rd grade reading. We encourage you, if you're interested in this, to submit a letter of interest to join the fellowship. You do that, go to the website, connect with Katie Basham. Katie's email address is here if you'd like to have more information. And there's also information on this fellowship at the Partners for Education website, which I realize we didn't list on this slide. But we'll send the fellowship link out to you when we send the slides and the information. So it's been great being here. Lesley, anything else that you want to add before we finish up?
No, just a thank you. Thanks for everybody for participating today. And we're really looking forward to the next webinar in March.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you early March. Bye-bye.